Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Prudent Preservations. Today, we're going to can up some potatoes. So, at our house, we love potato soup, but it kind of takes a while to make. But not if you have diced potatoes ready to use and dump in your pot. So today, I've got a bunch. I've probably got about 30 pounds of potatoes, and I'm going to go through and show you how I process those, can those, and get them ready to be on the shelf. Now, as always, I need to start with a caveat. I do what's called a dry canning method or a dry pack method. I don't put water in the jars when I can them. That is something that if you went to all of the alphabet agencies, they would say not to do this. So, as always, you need to do your own reading and make your own decisions on what you are willing to can. At our house, this is how I do it. I'm going to dice these potatoes up. I'm going to wash them really well. I'm going to dice them up, and then we're going to pressure can them for 40 minutes with a little bit of salt and pepper or some seasonings if you want seasonings. However you want to do it, where the seasoning is concerned. But I usually put at least a teaspoon of salt and some pepper, and I don't put water. And what happens is after you soak it and you get a lot of the starch out, there will still be some starch remaining. The starch will fall into the bottom of the jar. But the great thing is these potatoes will not be mushy when you open the can up to use them. So they're great for fried potatoes or potato soup or pretty much anything. You can even use them and make French fries. You can slice them as fry cut potatoes and then, put them in the air fryer and make French fries that way. And they won't be soggy and mushy because they've been sitting in a jar of water for the past 2 years. Now, I will also add that these don't last that long on our shelf because we like potatoes. So that's the whole process. And I'm going to show you how I dice them up. I have this wonderful little contraption right here that makes that super easy. And I'm going to show you real quick how I wash them up because that can be a little bit of a challenging. And there are people that do it in all kinds of ways. If you've got a different way to do it, that is fantastic. Drop a comment and I want to know about it. For me, I just put them in the sink and I scrub each one of them until they are as clean as I can get them. And then I dice them up. So we're going to go through that, and I'll let you come along with me. Now, I really give these potatoes a good scrub, each one of them. Get as much of that skin to be as absolutely clean as possible. And I don't want any spots or anything that looks too weird on there either. You see, I've got a steel wool. I'm not playing. I give them a good hard scrub. There are people that will attach a utensil to their grill and scrub them that way, and that's completely fine too, because you do want them to be really clean. There are people that will skin them, and that's completely a fine alternative to scrubbing them. But I find that scrubbing them is just easier, and I like the skin to be on them, especially if I'm making fried potatoes. And so I don't peel my potatoes. But the great thing about being in your own kitchen is that you can do what you want. And if you want to peel the potatoes, that's even better. So, after you've got your potatoes washed, we're just going to dice them up. And I have this handy dandy contraption here that makes that a really easy process for me. If I can do French fried cut potatoes or diced potatoes. All very simple. You just put it in, press it down, and I put it in a bucket of water so they drop right into the water. That's so they don't get brown. When potatoes brown, it's because they oxidize with the air. And so if we keep them from being in the air, they won't oxidize and turn brown. So I'm going to just fill this bucket up with these potatoes in a fry cut fashion. And then I'll do it again, long ways, to make them diced. So now my bucket's pretty full. So now I'm going to take this and put it in this bucket. So now in that bucket, I have all of my French fry cut potatoes. Like this. I'm going to put some water back in this bucket so that they don't oxidize. There. Now, this, it doesn't really matter if some of them are a little bit big. They're going to end up being diced or close to it. I just don't want them to be long French fry cut potatoes because that takes up a lot of space in my jar. If I dice them, I can fit more potatoes in a jar, and ultimately that's less jars on my shelf. Now, if you want to do French fries and you need it to be like that, personally I like fried potatoes just fine, then you would need, obviously, to leave them as fry cut potatoes, and it would work just the same. I just choose to have them diced, or at least in smaller pieces, so that I can fit more on my shelf. Because again, we like potato soup and fried potatoes. Okay, so our potatoes have been washed and diced, and now they're in my bucket here with water. And I've got some jars here that I have washed, and they're ready to go. So they're just washed, and they're a bit warm. I used very hot water, and I have my canner here. It's my digital canner, and it's very hot, so that as I fill them, I'm just going to put them right into that canner. And once this canner is ready to go, I'll get my first batch started. They process for 40 minutes, and then they're done. It's so easy. 1 teaspoon of salt inside the jar with the potatoes, and a little bit of pepper. So I just scoop them up, and I have a little funnel on my jar, and I put them right into the jar. I do try to pack them as tightly as possible, so I can get as much as possible in my jar. When they cook, they're going to cook down. And so there's not going to be as much room in the jar after they've been processed as there is right now. But I do still tend to leave about 1 inch of headspace, roughly. Now we're going to put a teaspoon of salt. Now these are all quart jars. I have a lot of rings because I have a lot of jars of potatoes. We are processing roughly 20 pounds of potatoes today. So really quickly, I just wipe the rim, put on my lid, my ring, fingertip tight, and into my canner. Now while that canner starts its process, I've got my All-American behind me. I'll get the next set ready and I'll put it in that canner. And we'll have both of them going at once. In my other video, like I've said before, all of the canners have their own uses. You can generally have more going in and out with the All-American because you're not waiting quite so long for the cool down time and the lid is locked down. But when you've got 2 batches going, and in my case maybe 3 or 4, running both of them is really just the way to go. I think it goes without saying, potato canning day is also potato soup day. So any leftover potatoes that I have so in my case I did 20 pounds of potatoes. Any that were left over goes into the pot, and that's potato soup. So I did 14 quarts of diced potatoes, and we did probably a couple of quarts of potatoes in a big pot for a large pot of potato soup. And there's still a bit extra in this bowl here. Not many, but there's still some, and we'll probably do fried potatoes with those. Because my canners hold 7 here and 7 over there, and I have some lime juice that I want to can, and I didn't want to be up for 3 rounds of canning, so the extras go into the pot and into the soup. And anyways, it's potato soup day. So let's get these quarts of potatoes out of this canner. You can see it's still processing down there at the bottom and pushing all of that air out of the jar so that eventually it seals up. You can hear all these lids popping as they seal. It always startles me just a little bit when it's the one that I'm transferring from the canner to the table that seals. Looks like we just have a couple, maybe 3 left that haven't sealed. And they'll seal anyways over the next hour or so. Let's have a look. There you go. One of the easiest things to can, and arguably one of the most useful, at least in our house.